Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. I think it's safe to say after this week, the Democratic Party pretty fired up. It was just a month ago that a lot of the party felt adrift and demoralized and anguished over a race that really did seem to be sliding kind of inexorably towards a Trump victory and a second Trump presidency. Then, of course, the switch, as it's become known. President Joe Biden bowed out of the race, kicking off a heady month that closed out this week with an electrifying, unifying, and yes, joyful party convention in Chicago. And where last night, Vice President Kamala Harris officially accepted the Democratic nomination for president. In a speech that I have to say really just surpassed even high expectations. She met the moment, she laid out the stakes, and really specifically reached out to every part of a divided America. Everything you need to know about the choice of presidential candidates was kind of on display in their very different convention speeches. With Harris serving up this sort of formidable, targeted, crisp, concrete appeals to court-specific groups on America with specific messages in a speech that somehow brought a coherent policy and an optimistic worldview to all those different groups. And with Trump being Trump and dashing the hopes of every campaign insider who promised reporters he would pivot to being a unifier.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward.
The prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional. They should drop these partisan witch hunts, which I have been going through for approximately 8 years.
You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections, to the peaceful transfer of power.
I am trying to buy your vote. I'll be honest about that.
In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man.
Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner.
But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
And then we had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID.
In case that contrast isn't enough, you could also consider Trump's nervous, nonstop posting to social media throughout the Democratic convention, like when he accused vice presidential nominee and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz of stealing valor. Not military valor, no, but football valor. Walz was an assistant coach, not a coach, the former president shouted into a keyboard. He was an assistant coach. They still won the state title. It's incredible. Democrats are successfully making these kind of majoritarian appeals, broad swath of America, and Republicans are falling apart, begging Trump to stick to non-weird campaign talking points, flailing to find an attack on Harris and Walz that sticks, pointing fingers at each other over the Project 2025, its radioactive effect on voters. And here's the thing. All that's true. Democrats are still running as the underdogs. Threading a needle, the delicate message that basically says, and you saw it all 4 days, including last night, we represent the majority, the best of this country. We want to invite people in, but we're actually behind, and we have to work our butts off to win this thing. And that's because that's true. Every level of the Democratic Party understands the Electoral College is stacked against them, that they need a convincing popular vote win of millions upon millions of votes to overcome the red state advantage in electors. Remember, Joe Biden won 8 million more votes than Donald Trump. 8 million more votes 4 years ago. If just a few thousand votes had gone the other way in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona, he would have lost the Electoral College. As one political scientist pointed out after the most recent redistricting nationwide, it's impossible to find any kind of close election result that's better for Democrats in 2024 than in 2020. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is out on the campaign trail telling his most devoted supporters, don't sweat the actual voting too much.
Our primary focus is not to get out the vote. It's to make sure they don't cheat. Because we have all the votes you need. You can see it. Every House
along the way has signs, Trump, 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 Trump fans, Trump fans.
Votes. Schmotes. He doesn't care about the votes. He only cares about counting them in a way that lets him win. And yes, he can say that because he's fundamentally heading up an authoritarian, anti-democratic movement. 2020 was the proof of that. But also because Republicans know the electoral playing field is tilted towards them. It's the reason Trump can pick a running mate like J.D. Vance, who pleases the base but repels suburban voters. It's why Republicans can double down with convention speaker slots for the CEO of UFC, Dana White, and Hulk Hogan. And it's why Tim Walz is giving Democrats locker room pep talks like they are a team that is losing late in the fourth quarter.
We're down a field goal, but we're on offense and we've got the ball. We're driving down the field. And boy, do we have the right team.
So right now for Democrats in 2024, it is all about killing complacency and winning enough votes. And not just to win the Electoral College, but to win big enough so that when Donald Trump inevitably tries to cheat, when he inevitably tries to call in favors from MAGA officials in state houses on election boards, which he's going to do, when he looks for an assist from the Supreme Court that just created a special presidential immunity case just for him, when all that happens, the reality of his loss is so undeniable, it can be tamper-proof shared reality.